All right, welcome to another segment of Will's Not Wrong. This is a little segment that we do where I get to talk about things that I'm just flat out not wrong about. This is stuff I happen to be really good at, talking about things I'm not wrong at. Hey, this is sponsored today by Cherry Coke Zero. As you all know, I love Cherry Coke Zero. One of the worst things about COVID is all these shutdowns and shortages is you can't find this stuff in a can anymore. You can't find like Diet Mountain Dew, the things I love in a can. I was able to get these cans from our little Coke distributor, and they're these little tiny cans, these little mini cans here, which you would think is a good thing, like it probably limits my consumption. That's great though. But I mean, the truth is I just end up drinking like 8 of these a day, and these little things end up everywhere. So they're cute, really. You all saw the clickbaity title up there, going out on a limb here, controversial statement, but eating several small meals throughout the day is a really, really stupid, dumb idea for most of you. Why would I say that? Well, I'm gonna give you 3 reasons to make it very simple why I think it's a dumb idea, but first let's just talk about where did this thing come from. I think most of us remember out of the early 2000s, this idea started to sort of develop as really a way to prevent what people saw as the leading cause of obesity, especially in this country, of people kind of sitting down, binging, gorging themselves, and over-consuming food at big meals throughout the day. Right? The idea being that before leptin, the hunger, the satiety hormone could kick in and tell someone they're full, they're eating so fast at a restaurant or whatever it is, there are people on the go, meals on the go, they've consumed too many calories before their body tells them, hey, I'm full, I don't need to eat anymore. So the plan there was, instead of doing these huge meals throughout the day, let's eat several small meals throughout the day, thinking, hey, first of all, that could keep our metabolism burning at a more stable rate, which is crazy. Secondly, and some studies came out to support this, it did a good bit of good in controlling blood sugar levels. Instead of these big spikes and insulin releases we get from these huge meals, it kind of kept that roller coaster a little bit less intense. And we even saw studies that it helped improve cholesterol in people's bodies. But these are things that are very, very small needle movers. It's not something that most of us, especially if you have some level of self-control or discipline, as we do in this group where we're tracking our food, we're learning to eat on a budget, it's not something that we really need. Those aren't little tricks that really help us. In fact, I would argue that they hurt us. And here's why. Number one, the first reason why it's a dumb idea is it didn't work. I mean, there really shouldn't be needing more reason than that. In the early 2000s, when this idea came about, from there until now, America's roughly 10% more obese. So if the whole idea of eating smaller meals throughout the day was going to help prevent people from overeating and create healthier diets, it just flat out hasn't worked. And a whole lot of people follow that, like a whole lot of people. By small meals, we usually mean like anything over like 300 or 400 calories. They count that really as a meal. So anything more than just a little snack, I think most of you, and me included, that is probably how we eat. We eat several times throughout the day, and that's a slippery slope that slides into kind of always eating. It's just like constant snacking, constant eating, maybe with a couple big meals there with maybe lunch and dinner surrounding that. So it just didn't work. I mean, the stats are very clear. We're fatter now than, as we've been doing that, than when we started. So why would we keep doing that, right? But that leads me to my second point, in that if the idea is to prevent us from overeating, yet it's turned us into a time thing where we're always consuming food, the chances of us overeating just go up. Why is that? Well, even for us that track and measure our food, we know that tracking is an imperfect science. There's no way you ever weigh things perfectly, especially if you're eating out. You can estimate and plug in those things, but it's never perfectly accurate. Sometimes you might put a little bit more, a little bit less in your bowl. It's just an imperfect thing by nature. So that being said, the more often you are doing that throughout the day, the higher the chance of those numbers becoming more and more inaccurate. Think of it, we use the idea of budgeting, right? Personal finance, and relating that to what we do with food all the time. Let's say you have a grocery budget. If you are going to go grocery shopping once a week versus someone who goes to the store every single day on their way home, which of those two people do you think would have a higher chance of staying within their grocery budget? Well, of course, the person that goes once a week, you know what your weekly budget is, there you're gonna go spend that money that day at the grocery store. Where if you stop every day, you're like, there's a couple of dollars off today, a couple of dollars off today, no big deal, it just kind of keeps compiling. it's going to end up being more inaccurate. I mean, that's common sense. The impulse decisions have a higher chance of happening. And the same thing with food. If you're all constantly eating all day long, the chances of you grabbing an extra little handful of this or handful of that, or a little snack off your kid's plate, or a little bite of your wife's dinner, those things all go up. So it just leads more, gives us more room for error. And that alone can statistically change things big time. And the third reason is really a functional reason. It's just time consuming, especially for us that we're trying to track things. Sitting down, weighing out your meals 3 times a day. I've got my breakfast, my lunch, my dinner. I've proportioned that out. I've weighed it. I've put it in my FitnessPal. Is a whole lot less time spent on the phone and spent weighing things and getting cups out and this and that than if you did that 6 times a day. At some point, every time you go to the pantry, every time you go to the fridge, you're sitting there with your face in your phone doing all these things. Again, that's wasting your time, and last thing I want is to have you all spend more time with your face in your phone. But lastly, again, it just leads to more room for error. Like, what's the chances that you forget to put something in your phone? Like, oh, I got a handful of almonds. I need to remember to put that in there later. And then you kind of go back at that next meal when you're sitting down for dinner, putting the food in that you were supposed to put in anyways. You're like, oh yeah, I had those almonds. What was it? Was it 1 ounce? I had ½ ounce. What was it? It leads us to create more room for error. So really, that's the best 3 reasons right there. 1, it doesn't work. That's the only reason we really need. 2, it's going to lead to a lot more impulse eating, a lot more room for error in how we're tracking our food. And 3, it's just time consuming. Most of you, to wrap this up, would do better if you feel like you're stuck, or you feel like you've plateaued, you feel like you're not making progress. Think about this and try it. Try it for 1 week. Talk to your coach. I bet you would see results. Get those same macros that you're eating and tell yourself, I'm going to sit down, and I usually do something called a 3+1. That's what I'm a big fan of. Take those macros and divide them equally the best you can amongst 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I know what some of you are already saying, especially some of you all that are in the performance fitness side working out a lot, you've got a high protein number. My number for protein is like almost 200 grams. To divide that in 3 would be tough. That would be 70 grams just over every meal. It's a lot of protein to force down. Even for someone my size. So that's where I give it the +1. We'll allow 1 more snack, like a post-workout recovery protein shake or something. So then I've only got to take the remaining protein amount and divide that amongst the 3 meals. For me, that's going to come out to maybe 50 grams of protein a meal, which still sounds like a lot to a lot of you. I get it, but for me, that's actually a reasonable amount. That's very doable, and that's about what I try to get most meals anyways. Take your macro numbers, divide them equally amongst 3 meals, plus the 1, if you want, call that your snack, call that your recovery shake, whatever it is, protein-based or balanced snack if possible, and I bet you will see progress, all right? That's all for now. Comment below, fire back if you have any questions, if you disagree, if you think I'm an idiot, that's okay. I'm still not wrong, and I still love you. Have a good day. And just now, as I go to turn off the camera, the Coke Zero falls over, spills all over the table, and I'm once again down a whole nother Cherry Coke Zero. 2020, am I right?